So how did this all start? So in January of 2013, ASC approached BIC to work on a collaborative program, which we call the BioProducts AgSci cluster. Before we said yes, we thought, well, let's see what we're going to get ourselves into. So we tried to get understanding of what's the situation, what's the lay of the land. And we engaged MMP and some other consultants and industry partners and did our homework as best we could to see what's the situation. So as part of our review, this is just the highlights. You know, the overarching message was for the bioproduct development status within Canada, we're very much in early stages. I know John was mentioning a lot of the work in the biotech been around for a long time, but in bioproduct here we mean taking products from biomass, agriculture derived into more different value-added products. The market certainly, depending on which study you would read, the market report suggests that the market demand in terms of sales between $90 and $200 billion by 2020. People were looking for performance. They were looking for new functionalities, a benefit to society and the environment at the same cost. Right? And that's the challenge that we all face. In terms of where we are within Canada to address this market, we're very early in the days in the ag supply chain and in the development of technology to take the ag biomass into higher value products. Now, when we looked at the research developments and the commercialization developments across the country, these are some of the findings that kind of stood out. One is that a lot of the research done in Canada is done in isolation. We found projects done in BC that had the same objectives and almost the exact same technology that was being done in Quebec. And we found quite a few of these examples. And what we did earlier on is to try to match these siloed projects together so they can kind of pool their resources and try not to run into major IP barriers in the future. The other thing that we noticed was that the research and development activities were done without a value proposition in mind, without a customer in mind, how that research would be used for commercial viability, for public good. And that's something we're trying to correct. And not so surprising after some of the discussions you heard, many of them did not make any economic sense. Interesting. So the opportunity before us was to create a globally recognized agriculture and science-based cluster. The key point here is develop something that's commercially viable, leverage off each other's experience, be more open to collaboration and working with each other, and position your developments with your suppliers in mind and your customers in mind. So in September of this year, Minister Ritz announced the approval of our project, and 11 projects were approved with a total project value about $12 million. Small in the grand scheme of things, but the starting point, a very important starting point. The cluster, we're dividing into essentially 4 themes, right? And across the country, this is just listing all the projects that we have within the cluster, 11 projects. The projects are across the country, and they look at technologies and processes from biomass to intermediate products to end products, focusing in areas of supply, chemicals and energies, materials, and specialty products. If you look at the hierarchy of the value, this picture kind of shows where things are in terms of their hierarchy. Now, what's our role? So BIC, we're here to help provide focus for the development of the various projects, help deliver on the opportunity. And to help do this, we're going to lean on 3 processes that we've been using for some time. So one of the processes that we employ is trying to establish deal flow. And for us, that starts with what we have today, the current projects. I kind of mapped where our projects stand in terms of the different chemical and bioproduct pathways in blue. And I've also marked future projects that we've identified that the cluster can absorb in the future. What we're trying to do here is create a pipeline, identify opportunities, and create pipeline for further development in the bioproducts area. The other part that we try to help in terms of achieving the cluster objectives is we try to help each of the projects stay connected to the market. An example that I'll use is 2 large industrial collaborations that are proving to be very successful in this market where there's a diverse amount of complexity, market knowledge, and science that have to be put together and requires more of a community effort to actually commercialize these new technologies in a timely way that matches investor expectations. Okay? And the 2 examples I give here is the PET Collaborative and the Succinic Collaborative. BioAmber is part of the Succinic Collaborative. The other part is we're looking for commercial viable solutions, and we're looking for the projects largely funded by you and I through taxpayer money. And my wife always tells me when I manage our stocks, James, you only make money when you sell your stock, right? That's so true, right? So with the exit in mind, the exit that Canada, the taxpayers receive for the investments made in research, what we try to do is we try to help cultivate commercially viable solutions so that they will attract partners. And just based on, this is a slide I took off the National Venture Capital Association database. If you look at historically, a lot of the exits were from IPOs, but as we go further along from the most recent decade anyway, the IPOs have become fewer and fewer as multinational companies have been focusing less money in internal research and more money in buying the research. That's more efficient use of their own dollars. Let someone else take their risk first. And so understanding this trend, we recognize there's a need that when we help our projects develop commercially viable solutions, that we also need to help them find ways to reach out into the market, both financially and as in terms of strategic partners. I talked about 2 of our processes that we use to try to help advance the projects within the bioeconomy and within our bioproduct sector. First is developing the pipeline, and second is establishing connections with the customers, the suppliers, and investors. What I would like to do is welcome you to participate in our AgSci cluster activities. If you hear about any interesting technologies in the future, or you're interested in technologies that we are currently working on, please come to us. We will try to connect you with the people that we know to help technologies that you want to introduce into commercialization, and we might even give you a call asking for your assistance if we think that there's a good fit with what we're working on and what you're working on.